Hi folks, and welcome back to the channel, and this is our third installment of a look at some of our machinery. And today we're going to start with the jointer here behind me. It's a Wadkin BFT 12-inch jointer. I've had this one for about 23 years. Bought it second hand. I usually run two jointers at least. If you watch the first episode of this tour, the old fella that was in that, it's set up and never gets changed. So it's set up to take 2 mil off, and that's all it ever does. I never wind it up or down. This machine here is used if we need to take anything other than 2 mil off. It's a lot easier to set up in the height than the other one. This one's been getting a lot more attention. If you've watched any of our videos, you would have seen that I've used this one quite a bit of late, just simply because the cutters need changing in the other machine, and it's a bit of a task to do, so I've been putting it off. Anyhow, this machine, as I said, I bought it second hand. I've had to get the engine replaced in it. The bearings went in the motor, so it actually blew up. Made a bit of a funny noise and some sparks and whatever, and blew up. So I had to send it away and get a new motor put in it, because it's a bit of a task to actually replace the motor. The motor's in here, and you literally have to, you either come in through the bottom or you pull the actual main part of the machine off the pedestal. Quite a serious job, not one that I wanted to do myself, so I sent it away to the engineers and they looked after it for me. It's a pretty good machine. It's not my favourite, that's for sure. It does an okay job, but if I was only able to keep one, it wouldn't be this one. I'd be keeping the other one, and I know that's a bit of a strange thing for you to hear me say, considering I'm a huge Wadkin fan. But this particular, and it might just be this particular machine, it just I just don't love it. I like it, but I don't love it. It's quite high. So when we're dressing our doors to width on it, you know, we're working up quite high, and I don't enjoy that. I much prefer my other one, which is only comes up to the hip, where, you know, this one, it's, you know, the other one's down, sort of down about this height, where this one's up, you know, quite a significant amount higher. Like, it may not look like it, but it is you know, a fair amount higher. The fence system on this is good. It's much better than the old fella that I've got there. The old fella's on a couple of bolts, so if I want to move the fence, I've got to undo bolts and move it across. This is on a rack and pinion over the back. Well, not even a rack and pinion, just like a big long shaft and a wheel. You can just slide it back and forth. Works quite easily. One thing that it does has that I'm not happy with on this machine, and it's not the machine, but it's just whoever's been using it, it's worn on the front edge here leading into the cutter head. You can actually feel it with your hands, like it's worn, and I think, I'm not really sure what's done it, to be honest. Like, it's almost like the fence has been rubbing on it, and over the years of its lifetime, it's worn away. But that sort of seems a bit odd. But I can't explain what's caused it. But it is noticeable. You can feel it. It's quite a significant hollow in it. I believe these things were made in the 70s. This isn't the original guard. It should have what we call a leg of mutton guard, which actually should come off here and come over on a spring. This guard's a pain in the neck. Somebody else has put that on. It's been, I don't know, like over the course of time in Australia, the powers that be changed their minds a lot, and at one point in time they outlawed leg of mutton guards for some stupid reason. They're the best guard you can have on these things, but for whatever reason they outlawed them, and so different guards were made. We had these big monstrosities that came off up the back here with two big arms that came down on springs. They were horrible things, but they were the guards that were deemed to be the appropriate ones. These are far better than those things, but the leg of mutton guard is by far the best guard because the guard can be in place all the time. Where these things, you have to move them back out of your way to be able to use the machine effectively. But yeah, as I said, it's a good machine, there's nothing wrong with it, it's just not my favourite. Okay, we'll move on. So I won't spend much time on this machine. This is my second Wadkin EQ Spindle Moulder. I gave a pretty good rundown in the original video of my other one, my workhorse. This is the same machine, same model of machine. There's some slight differences. The switch is on the opposite side to my other one. Bit of a pain in the neck because when you're trying to wind the wheel, you can quite often get your fingers jammed in there, which causes a significant little bit of pain there for a bit. I bought this one very, very cheaply. It's been rebuilt, but instead of doing it originally and having it in the oil bath like it's supposed to be, that's been changed around and it's had grease nipples and that sort of stuff put in it, which I don't know, good or bad, I don't know, time will tell, I guess. It only has a very small shaft on this one. Not sure if I've got a replacement that's any bigger than this, but I've just left on it what's on it. It's currently set up to do some ploughs for the housing of spiral balances for double hung sashes. It's been set up now for a little while, but I don't use this machine very much, just when I have the other machine set up, but I need to use it, so this one will get used. It's okay. The other one is by far and away my favourite machine out of the two, but this one's fine, especially for the price that I got it for. Anyway, move on. So this big fella here is a Wadkin RE 24-inch panel planer, or 600mm for us Aussies. Made in, I think it was 1952, and we know the entire history of this machine. When my dad was an apprentice, one of the companies that he worked for, coming towards the end of his apprenticeship, actually bought this machine brand new. They had it for a number of years, and when they were ready to close up, they actually sold it to another old friend of ours who I actually bought it off, and this old friend of ours was another person that my dad worked for when I was very, very young, or even before my birth. I've had this now since about 1997, and it does all our dressing. It works all day, every day. Dresses most of our timber, not all of it, but most of it. I've had to do the odd repair on it. Many years ago now, 20 odd years ago, the actual serrated feed roller here got overheated and seized up in the bearings. They're not ball race type bearings. It's just a white metal bearing, so just a block that's bored out, and the head turned to go through it, and it just runs, and that's the bearing that it runs in. So the oil needs to be kept up to them just to keep them lubricated, and obviously it hadn't been kept up to it, and it seized up, so we just had to get that fixed up. But yeah, this thing does a fantastic job. It's still all original. It's still running the original square head that it came out with. The serious set of knives on the thing, like they're about roughly about 10mm, 3/8 of an inch thick, you know, by the 24-inch 600mm, and they're probably three inches or so wide. I'll pause this video in a second. I'll go and grab one and I'll show you, or I'll lift the hood and show you. It actually has two separate motors down here. It has, I think it's either a 3/4 or a 1 horsepower feed motor, and then a 7.5 horsepower main motor to drive the head. 3-speed gearbox. Any cranky timber we run on the slowest speed, so it only ever seems to get run on the slowest speed or the next speed up. I never run it on the fastest speed because it just chops the timber out too much running it on that. So if you're doing Western red cedar or, you know, timbers that are fairly easy to work, it'll go onto the second speed, but if I'm doing crankier timber where the grain's interlocking or the grain runs like this where it's not just running on a straight angle up, we'll run it on the slower speed to avoid the breakout. We actually have a spring-loaded table on the back of it on the outfeed to catch the timber. And again, if you've watched any of our build videos, you would have seen some footage of this being used and some footage of the table. It's only got a... they were never designed to be extracted, these things. It's not how they were made, but when I first got it, I just made up a, believe it or not, an MDF chute, you know, going back 25 years ago, and put it on it. And believe it or not, that MDF chute is still on it. It's basically at the end of its life. I need to replace it, but it still does the job. Not sure what else I can tell you about it. Its height capacity is 9 inches or 225 mil in the height. It'll take off in one bite. You can take off about 7 mil, quarter of an inch, and it'll do that, obviously depending on the timber, but it'll do that for the whole width of the machine. Like, it's a very, very powerful machine, very heavy machine. It weighs in at a ton and a quarter. Yeah, what else can I say? Great machine, another Wadkin, love them. So just a quick little bit of footage just to show you the head, the knives. Big, huge piece of work. Very, very heavy duty. So this is a 6-head Wadkin GB moulder. It's 6 head, but it's 5+1. So this head here is a universal head. Supposedly be able to do anything you want with it pretty much, but they're fairly useless, so I never use them. I just use the 5 fixed heads, which ends up being your bottom, your left vertical, your right vertical, top, and a secondary bottom. The secondary bottom I could do without. What I would really love to have would be another top head, but not to be. Anyhow, this machine is the leftovers, if you like. I've had a few moulders over the years, and this is the one that I've ended up with. It's from new, would have been an absolutely fantastic machine. This thing has had a very, very, very hard life before I ever met it. It's been operated by some real, want for a better word, real mugs. People who have no clue what they're on about. They've damaged it, they've had the rollers down too low so that the serrated metal rollers are grinding into the bed of the table. So there's score marks all across the table wherever the serrated rollers are. It's just been very, very badly abused over its life. It needs some money spent on it now, some money that I don't have. So for the time being, it's running, but it's not running great. So its use for me nowadays is limited. I used to do a lot of machining on it, but now I'm finding that it's leaving marks in the material, and it's just causing me too much grief. So I tend to go the old-fashioned way over the jointer and through the planer, a lot slower, but I'm getting a better job. But in saying that though, this is an excellent machine. I really like it. It really speeds your job up. I mean, I only have it set up going about, I think, 6 to 10 meters, something like that, per minute. But even in doing that, you know, I can throw a cubic meter of timber through this in an hour or less even. So it's you know, they're really worth having. I run sash stock on this. I used to do double rabbited jam on it. The old machine that I had, I used to do everything on it, but it was an old square head machine, and I had hundreds and hundreds of pairs of cutters for it that I could do anything I like. But this is all circular head, so when I sold the old fella, I didn't keep the tooling, so I can only do on this one what I've got tooling for. As I said, it's a 5-head machine. I'll open it up for you, but I've only just discovered today that the forgotten what they're called, the things that hold the hood up, have failed. I don't know when that's happened, because last time I used it they were fine, but now they've failed. But I'll lift the hood up and see what you can see. It's probably pretty dusty in there. This is what it is. The red tyres there, they go through to here. So this head here is the top head. So once the timbers come out of here, that's its final dressed point. So then we go on to soft tyres, so that we're not marking the timber. I got all of these wheels retired because the original ones that were on it had worn, and they go hard and they lose their grip, so they just spin on the timber then, and they really don't work. So I got them all retired. Yeah, she's a good old thing. Very expensive machine in its day. I'm not sure of the age. I think, I've got a feeling it's about 1986. Anybody who knows better, you can correct me on that. But I'm pretty sure that's around about what it is, somewhere around there. I don't think it's any newer than that, that's for sure. It's got digital readout, but manual digital readout. The only thing that's motor driven is the height of the feed rollers. I have to manually adjust the head, have to manually adjust the vertical heads. Yeah, it does a pretty good job. Like, it has a 2 metre in-feed table, so it straightens pretty well, as long as your stock's not over the top crooked. But yeah, it does a pretty good job. I'm happy with it, which is why I've kept it. But I mean, as I said, if money wasn't a concern, I really need to spend a few $1,000s on it, getting some things fixed up. But unfortunately for it, it's just not on the high priority list at this point in time. Anyhow, we'll move on. So here we have a Wadkin EP. The EP was the machine, or the model number prior to the EQ, so this one's just slightly older than the other 2 spindle moulders that I have. A little bit more basic, this machine. It's only single directional, so just forward, and the only way you can change the speed is to change the belt on the pulleys. It still has the braking system here like the EQ does, but as I said, just a more basic machine. I did have another EP, but I sold it about 6 or 8 months ago. It did have forward and reverse. I'm not sure if that was original to the machine or if it had been added on by somebody else. Not a terribly difficult thing to do with 3-phase machinery. All you need to do is change the polarity, so it's all you're doing is just changing the direction in which it runs. So it's a pretty simple thing to do. So it may well have been added by somebody else who'd owned it at some point. This particular machine is set up all day every day just to run jam, or a rabbited section to run either door jam or window style and head for casements or awning windows. Always set up, it's never changed. So this particular head's been in it for a few years now. Yeah, it's just, it doesn't get a real lot of use. As I said, like permanently set up just to do the one job. It's a good machine. It's, as I said, it's a pretty basic machine, but it does the job and it'll never let you down. It's, I guess, like as I said, it's older than the other 2, so I guess it's probably early 60s, somewhere thereabouts. Solid, half a ton in weight, somewhere thereabouts. Yeah, there's not much I can say about it really. They're just a straight up good, honest spindle moulder. Basic, simple, but easy to use, and they do the job well. So this machine behind me here is a Wadkin CC 18-inch radial arm saw. Another machine that I bought very cheaply. I paid around about $1,000 for this saw somewhere around about 25 years ago. lose track. I bought a lot of machinery that I have here. I bought around a very similar period, somewhere around the 25 years ago. This does all our rough docking. It's great. It has a very long cut. Like I'm not even sure how big a cut, but I mean we've had it out. We've had it right out to here. You can see the scores in the table. You probably can't see them on there, but so that in and itself is so about 18 inches. We've had it out. We don't have anything. We don't use anything wider than that, so I don't really need to be cutting anything bigger than that. But it is a very big machine. We off the wall. It's basically 2 meters off the wall, or pretty close to that. I don't know what you can see on a blown up version, but what I'm looking at on the camera here, I can't tell on that footage how far it is back, but it's anywhere from 6 to 7 foot back from here to the wall. So that's the downside of this machine, is it takes up an enormous amount of space. So to counteract the space that we lose out of it, to my right here, in behind the table, I have a 4-bag extraction system set up in there, which goes to the 3 saws, or the 4 saws that we use, 3 saws. To that side, you can just see it in the picture there. I've got a timber rack. So I have, well, there you go. I've got the pieces that I have in that rack are 2 meters and 60 long, and they're sitting in behind the fence. So that gives you an idea of how much space this thing takes up. I've got tables either side of the saw. We can cut about 5.5 meters to this side, and I could probably do about 7 or 8 meters to that side, but I run out of space on this end. It's a very serious machine. As I said, 18-inch blade on it. Heavy as, like, yeah. I mean, you cut anything you like on this thing. It's good. I'll give you a look at the wheel. I'll slide it out, and you can see the saw on it. Hopefully you can see the saw there all right. It's a really good design, and as I said, it does a really good job. It's just its downside is the room that it takes up, unfortunately. But compared to the other two, like the other two Wadkin BRAs that I have, they're concealed within the cabinet of the machine. So, you know, they're only, I don't know, they're not even a metre. Well, they might be just on a metre deep, 3.5 foot deep. Where this thing isn't. This thing has the main pedestal, which is back there, which is actually bolted, like it's a very serious pedestal, bolted to the ground, which you would have to, given the weight that this thing is. If you didn't have it bolted down, as soon as you slid the arm over, the thing would fall over. But underneath the table here, you can just see it in picture, like, because the tables are so long, I've got timber offcuts stored underneath all here, but you can just see to the side there, that wheel, that's for winding the saw up and down. It can be turned around to do 45s and all of that sort of stuff, but I don't do anything like that with it. It's just set up purely just for rough docking. So we machine all of our own material here. So I buy pack loads of timber in, and I buy it in their rough sawn state, and then we machine everything. So I dock it up, goes over the jointer or through the moulder, whichever process that we're doing, but we machine everything here. So 90% rough docking. It does do some finer work, but I noticed the other day that the fences need some truing up. It's cutting a bit out of square here now, so I've probably bashed into the fence a bit too hard when I've had an armful of timber and knocked something out of square, so I need to fix that up. But yeah, a great saw. Not something that you would get if you had a small workshop, that's for sure, just simply because of the room that it takes up. But again, typical Wadkin, go all day, every day, and 100 years time, it'll still be going. I think, I know, I've got one more to show you. So this is the second of the Wadkin BRAs that I have. This one doesn't have any tables. We've got tables made for it, but we don't have the tables on it, just simply because we only do small docking on this one. So say we've already got a piece of timber cut to the length that we thought we wanted it, and we needed just to trim it up, just a small trimming or something like that. This is the machine that we'll run out and use. It's a later model than the other one that I have. This one's on a stand as opposed to being on a cabinet. There's a few subtle differences. They're pretty much the same machine, but a few subtle differences. This one I think is about 10 years newer than the other one. This one has a foot pedal wired up to it, like an emergency stop foot pedal. Not that I ever use it, but it's there. As I said, just set up just for quick docking and things like that. Works fine. Very good machine. Like they're solid, reliable machines, these things. Like the way in which they're set up, like the carriage up in here, you've got 4 wheels on either side of the arm. You've got what would you call it, like your half circle on the side here. Sorry, I'm just having a mental blank, I can't think what it's called. Like the rod on either side here, and your concaved wheels that run along the rod. You can set them up absolutely precisely. There's no movement in them whatsoever. They can be set up to 45 both ways. Like the arm can move around to 45, or the head can move around to 45, or anywhere in between. Yeah, not much more to say on it because I've already spoke about the other one. The only difference is really between that one and this one is that one has a nest of saws in it. This one we just have a traditional 14-inch fine cut blade in it. The other one has a nest of saws, and I think it's about 12-inch, not 14-inch, but it's still a 14-inch machine. Yeah, as I said, this one's just a little bit newer, slightly different design, but pretty much the same machine, so I won't rave on about it. So just a quick look at it. Okay, there you go. So thanks for watching. I hope you've enjoyed the Wadkin wrap-up, that's done and dusted now for all of the Wadkin machinery I have. I've still got other machinery, but there's no more Wadkins left to it. So if we do a part 4, if there's anybody that wants to see it, a part 4 would just be the balance of what I have left here. There's a few interesting things, but as I said, nothing in Wadkin. As I said, thanks for watching. If you've enjoyed the video, please leave a like, and don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. Thank you very much. See you in the next one.